Bouncing. Time now to call in our own political analyst, Richard Wolff. Good evening, Richard.
Good evening, Keith.
One day, apparently Republicans can't or are not allowed to oppose Boss Limbaugh for a period longer than one day. Is it actually this case now? You're either for Limbaugh or against the Republicans?
You know, it does sound like that first Bush doctrine. You're either for them or you're with the terrorists, I guess. And it's clear who's doing the terrorizing here. You have a party that ran no less than 4 elections on being tougher and stronger than anyone else, and they can't say boo to a radio talk show guy. It's surprising that elected officials are in this quandary, and they have put themselves into it. You know, this is a guy who, apart from bouncing up and down, celebrated liberty and freedom and all the other things that are in the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence or whatever it was. And here they don't have the freedom to say what they really feel, which is that he is hijacking their party and their message. You know, this is a sorry state of affairs for even the Republicans.
To the degree that, and we can speculate as to how it would sound to hear somebody say, how can you stand up to al-Qaeda if you can't stand up to Rush Limbaugh? But the Republican whip, Cantor, his office would not answer the question today of whether he now stands with Limbaugh or stands against him. And it was Cantor who, a year and a half ago, created a website called standwithrush.com. There are two really heavy issues here for people like Cantor, aren't there? I mean, he's got this large figure in the Republican Party versus this new number about Obama's approval, which just keeps going up the more that the far right rants against him. It's how do they get out of this situation?
Well, they do need to actually have a semi-courageous moment and say enough already. He isn't actually a leader of the party. He's not an elected official. And look, to draw a comparison, people have said Democrats are trying to do to Limbaugh what Republicans did to Michael Moore. There were no Democrats, as far as I can remember, who were saying they stood with Michael Moore and put up websites like that. They never described Michael Moore as a leader in the party. And the problem is they have elevated this guy who is looking for an audience. There is a commercial motive behind this to this ideological position. He is not the solution to their problems. They need to reach out to the independent voters in places like suburban Richmond, which is in Eric Cantor's district, who voted for Obama. Those are the kinds of people they need to reach, and they're not going to reach them through Rush Limbaugh.
Those are the people who decided that last election. We discussed last night that obviously the White House to some degree provoked or took advantage of the opportunity to seize this uncivil war inside the GOP that had begun and seems to be beginning. Is there a Democratic endgame to this? I mean, presumably if Limbaugh is not running things, he will be mad at the actual Republican politicians who are running things. But if Limbaugh is running things, doesn't that mean Obama basically hasn't failed? Or is the point of all of this from the Democratic point of view not which side wins a Republican war, but just that there be a Republican war in progress at all times?
Well, that's exactly the point. This is a party that obviously is going through several stages of grief, and they're somewhere between anger and denial right now. I'm just hoping the guilt phase comes in pretty soon. Look, they need to figure out what the direction is. This is a sideshow, and when Rahm Emanuel went on the Sunday talk shows and said Rush was the leader of the party, I scratched my head. They have just proved him right, and it's a monumental blunder for the Republican leadership. Yeah,
fairly masterful on Mr. Emanuel's part. MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolff, as always. Richard, great. Thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you, Keith.
With his for him or against the Republican Party stance, Boss Limbaugh making it possible, if not mandatory, for all kinds of voices on the right to advocate openly for President Obama.